Moving in with him was supposed to feel like a dream. And at first, it did. The apartment sat high above the city, wrapped in glass and sunlight. When I stepped inside for the first time, everything looked carefully arranged. Clean white walls, soft lighting, expensive furniture that felt untouched, like no one had truly lived there for long. "It's not much," he said, smiling as he took my suitcase from me. "Not much?" I laughed softly. "This is definitely not much." He shrugged, but I noticed the way he watched me as I walked further inside. Like he was checking my reaction to everything, like I was being evaluated. Still, I pushed the thought away. This was a new chapter, my new life with him. That was all that mattered. The kitchen was spotless. The bedroom smelled faintly of fresh linen. Even the bathroom looked like a hotel suite. Everything was perfect, almost too perfect. "Where should I put my things?" I asked. "Anywhere you want," he replied. I chose the dresser near the bed, opening drawers one by one, empty, clean, waiting. But when I went into the bathroom a few minutes later, I stopped. On the sink counter sat a toothbrush. Used. Not mine. Not new. My fingers froze around the edge of the counter. "Hey," I called out slowly, forcing my voice to stay calm. "Why is there another toothbrush here?" He appeared in the doorway almost instantly, too quickly. His eyes flicked to the sink, then back to me. "Oh," he said casually. "I forgot to throw that out." I studied him. Something about the answer didn't sit right. "Forgot?" I repeated. He nodded, already stepping forward to remove it. "It was from before, old tenant stuff. I'll take care of it." Old tenant? But the apartment didn't feel like it had been lived in recently. Everything looked too new, too untouched. I let it go. For now. Later that evening, while unpacking in the bedroom, I noticed something else. A door, at the end of the hallway, half hidden behind a wall. "Where does that go?" I asked, pointing. His expression changed instantly. Not fear, not surprise, something sharper. "Storage," he said quickly. "It's locked, don't worry about it." Too fast, too firm. I nodded slowly, but my attention stayed on the door longer than I intended. Because something about it didn't feel like storage. It felt like a boundary. And as night fell over the city and I stood alone in my new home, I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just moved into his apartment. I had moved into something already in progress. Something I wasn't supposed to question, yet. The first night didn't feel like home. I kept telling myself it was normal, that every new place feels unfamiliar at the beginning. But there's a difference between unfamiliar and wrong. At 3:12 a.m., I woke up. Not from a nightmare, not from noise outside, from silence that felt too aware. He was asleep beside me, breathing evenly, completely calm. But I stayed still, staring at the ceiling, listening to the apartment. That's when I heard it. A soft sound, like something shifting in the hallway. I waited. Nothing. Then again. A faint creak, slow, deliberate. My body tensed instantly. I turned my head slightly toward him. Still asleep. Carefully, I slipped out of bed and stood in the dark hallway. The air felt colder than it should have been. Every shadow looked too defined, like the apartment was holding its breath with me. The bathroom light was on. My stomach dropped. I was sure I turned it off. I walked slowly toward it, heart pounding louder with every step. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. Empty. Nothing inside. But the sink cabinet was slightly open. I don't remember leaving it that way. The next morning, I tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Stress, new environment, overthinking, until I found the second sign. A mug on the kitchen counter. 2 cups of coffee had been made, but I only remembered him making one. "Did you have someone over before I woke up?" I asked casually when he walked in. He froze for a fraction of a second, then smiled. "No, why?" I hesitated. There were 2 coffees. He glanced at the counter, then laughed lightly. "You probably just saw yesterday's." but I knew what I saw. Later that afternoon, I began unpacking my things again, trying to settle in properly. That's when I noticed something tucked behind the sofa cushion. A folded piece of paper. My hand slowed as I picked it up. No envelope, no name. Just a single line written in uneven handwriting. "You don't belong here." My breath caught instantly. I turned sharply toward the hallway. Empty. Silent. But suddenly the apartment didn't feel like a space I shared with him anymore. It felt like something was already here, watching, waiting. And when he came home that evening, I didn't tell him about the note, because something in me already knew. Whoever wrote it didn't want me to leave. They wanted me to realize I was never alone in this apartment in the first place. By the third day, I couldn't ignore it anymore. The apartment was still beautiful, still quiet, still perfectly arranged like a showroom pretending to be a home. But now every detail felt suspicious. The way doors stayed closed a little too firmly, the way silence felt intentional, the way my boyfriend always seemed just a bit too calm when I mentioned anything unusual. And there was still that door, the locked room at the end of the hallway. I found myself staring at it more than I admitted. From the kitchen, from the bedroom. Even while brushing my teeth, I'd catch it in the mirror's reflection like it was watching me back. He noticed. Of course he did. "You're thinking about that room again," he said one evening without looking up from his phone. It wasn't a question. I hesitated. "I'm just curious." His fingers paused slightly. "It's just storage," he repeated. "Old things. Nothing important." But this time his voice wasn't as smooth. That was the first crack. Later that night, I woke up again. But this time it wasn't silence that pulled me awake. It was a sound, a soft knock, from inside the apartment. I sat up slowly, heart already racing. The room was dark, but the hallway light was faintly on. He wasn't in bed. My stomach tightened. I stepped out carefully, moving toward the source of the sound. The locked room. The hallway felt longer than usual, like the distance between me and the door kept stretching. And then I saw it. The door was slightly open, just a few centimeters. My breath stopped. A thin strip of light spilled through the gap, flickering softly, as if someone inside was moving. I didn't even realize I was walking until I was right in front of it. Another sound came from inside, a soft shuffle. Then silence. My hand hovered over the door. "Hello?" I whispered. Nothing. Then, just as I leaned closer, footsteps behind me. I spun around instantly. He stood at the end of the hallway, watching me, expression completely unreadable. "What are you doing?" he asked calmly. My voice shook slightly. "There's someone in there." A pause. Too long. Then he walked toward me, closing the distance slowly. "There's no one in there," he said. But I had already seen the light. He stopped in front of me, blocking my view of the door. "Go back to bed," he added softly. And that's when I noticed it. The faint sound from inside the room had stopped the moment he appeared, like whatever was inside was listening to him. After that night, the apartment changed. Or maybe I did. I started noticing things I had ignored before, not because they weren't there, but because I hadn't wanted to see them. The locked room stayed shut again. The hallway light stopped flickering. Even the strange noises disappeared. It was as if whatever I had sensed was carefully pulled back into hiding, but the silence didn't bring peace. It brought suspicion. Then I found her. It was accidental, or maybe nothing in that apartment ever was. I was looking for extra storage space in the bedroom closet when my hand brushed against a loose panel at the back. It shifted slightly. Not enough to be obvious, just enough to feel wrong. I pulled it open. Inside was a small stack of things. A scarf, a notebook, a set of photographs. My breath caught as I picked up the first picture. A woman, smiling, standing in this exact apartment, in the same living room where I now stood. My fingers trembled as I flipped through more photos. Her in the kitchen, her sitting on the couch, her in places I had already started to call mine. And then I saw it. A photo of her standing beside him, My boyfriend. They looked normal, close, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I heard the front door open. Quickly, I shoved everything back into the panel, my heart racing. He walked in like nothing had changed, but something in me had. That night, I couldn't stay silent anymore. "Who was she?" I asked suddenly. He stopped in the hallway. For a long moment, he didn't respond. Then slowly turned toward me. "Who?" he asked, but I had already seen her face. I stepped forward. "The woman who lived here before me." A long pause. Then he said quietly, "She left." Simple, too simple. I shook my head. People don't leave behind photos and personal things like that. His expression tightened slightly, and for the first time since I moved in, his calm cracked just enough for me to see something underneath it. Not guilt, not confusion, fear. And in that moment I realized whatever happened to her didn't end with her leaving. It ended with her disappearing from the story he wanted me to believe. After that conversation, nothing felt stable anymore. Every sound in the apartment seemed louder. Every shadow felt intentional. And every time he looked at me, I couldn't tell if I was seeing my boyfriend or someone carefully hiding a truth I was no longer allowed to understand. I tried to leave it alone, I really did. But the apartment wouldn't let me. That night, I woke up again at the same time, 3:12 a.m. Except this time I didn't hear footsteps. I heard breathing, not his, mine, and something else, coming from the hallway, slow, controlled, close. I didn't move. Seconds passed, then minutes. The sound stopped, and just when I thought it was gone, my phone on the bedside table lit up. Unknown number, one message. "You finally found her." My blood turned cold instantly. I sat up, staring at the screen, unable to breathe properly. Before I could react, another message arrived. "Now ask him why she never really left." The apartment suddenly felt smaller. Too small. I slowly turned my head toward the hallway. The locked room was open again, just slightly. A thin strip of light cut through the darkness. I stood up slowly, every instinct telling me not to move, but something stronger pulling me forward. When I reached the doorway, I pushed it open. The room was empty, but not untouched. The walls were covered with markings, dates, notes, photographs pinned in uneven patterns. And in the center of the room, a mirror, not just a mirror, a live reflection of me, standing there. Behind me, I heard his voice. Calm, too calm. "You shouldn't have opened that." I turned slowly. He was standing in the doorway, watching me, and for the first time since I moved in, I didn't see confusion in his eyes. I saw certainty. "Where is she?" I whispered. A pause. Then he answered softly, "You've been standing in her place since the day you arrived." And suddenly, I understood the truth I had been avoiding from the beginning. I wasn't discovering someone else had lived here. I was discovering she might never have truly left at all.